All right, guys. So welcome back to another episode of the Management Scientist podcast. I did take a week off to enjoy, Christmas and New Year and all that jazz. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, sorry about the lighting. It kind of sucks, but today is going to be chapter 7. Which is starting out a new kind of path. I'm still going to talk about, addiction recovery and a lot of that, but I'm also going to start talking about, more mental health awareness things. And probably in the next couple of episodes, I'm going to go into religion and like LGBTQ and a specific denomination of religion, specifically the one that I grew up in. I'm hoping to maybe see if I can get a few people that were friends of mine to come and join me on those podcasts to kind of talk about all of our experiences in it and what little, interaction we have with it now, basically on what Christianity actually should look like versus what it was when we were growing up in that specific branch of, denomination. I probably won't specifically say the church, but yeah. But this podcast, chapter 7, is actually going to be entitled Forging Your Own Path in This Thing Called Life. And a lot of what I wanted to talk about in this one is I actually had a birthday on Christmas Day. Not quite a milestone birthday, but 1 year off from it. I did turn 39. And in saying that, that is something that I don't actually talk about a lot, my age. Not that I've ever cared for anybody to know how old I am. But with all the sort of society standards and the stigmas that are around aging and just a lot of things that have happened in the last couple of weeks that kind of surround aging. It's always been something that I've just never really openly shared with. Of course, people know how old I am that are friends with me, but I've never really openly shared it. Typically a lot of times I'll work with people who are even a decade or so younger than me, or people that are young enough to be children that I've had. And I've always kind of prided myself in my ability to get along with different age groups and, just different groups in general. I've always been open. I try not to be closed-minded when it comes to talking to someone or being friends with someone. But so, I've worked with a lot of people who are way younger than me, and I get along with them very well. And it's, it's not necessarily that I want to be like, oh, I'm old enough to be your mom. We can't have this conversation, because I don't think that would ever, come up or care. And, it's fun to listen to some of them try to guess how old I am, because I usually don't get in my mid 30s or late 30s. It's usually late 20s, maybe mid 20s. And that's another topic we're going to talk about in this podcast, because it's also sort of a year-end rant, and let's not make 2022 the same as it's always been. But I've never been one to that term, looking your age, or you look younger. I would have never thought you were that old. What does that mean to look your age? Why do you have to look a specific way at your age? I've never understood that. And it comes to mind, I've heard people say things especially with the new Sex and the City reboot, or the sequel, whatever you want to call it. I never really got into the original Sex and the City. But I guess it's called And Just Like That. But a lot of people were talking about how much older they looked in this video, or in this, this remake. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, because they are older. But it was, just completely, oh, they look so old. They've had too much work done. Well, yeah, they got all this work done because they felt like they needed to live up to society's standards for Hollywood. that they needed to continue to look young. And it's just, to me, it's just a crock of shit. Like, what does it matter? And why does it matter if a woman over 40, like what she wears, how she acts, like she has to have a family, she has to have this, and I mean, yeah, it does work for men too. Like there's this, a lot of people that I've talked about that are younger think, oh, by 24, I have to have all of my shit figured out because that's the age that I'll already be out of college. I have to do this, I have to do that. And if you are 24 and you get everything figured out at that age, great. That's great. But for everyone else, do it on your own timeline. Like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter what age you are when you quote unquote figure your shit out. Live your own life. If you want to go back to school at 30 plus, at 40 plus, at 50 plus, hell, at 80 plus, if you want to go back to school and learn something new or learn a new trade, or you just enjoy learning, do it. I mean, the only thing that's probably holding you back, not even money. I'm not a proponent for taking out a bunch of student loans, even though I did that myself. As I am someone who went back to school later on. I finished up one degree and started two more and plan on getting my PhD. And, like I said, I turned 40 at the end of this year. And I can't say that I completely have my shit figured out, but there is something that I've learned, in my late 30s, I've really learned to come into myself and really learned to not actually care what people think. Like, I'm not married. I'm not in a relationship. I don't have kids. Never really wanted kids. Not really huge on relationships or marriage because I like to be alone a lot. I have great friends. I still have time to go out and do things. But I live on my own terms, and it's for me, it works. For some other people, it might not, but for me, it works. And so for me, it's also to have been so scared to tell, not really scared, but to have been so guarded about my actual age, for people to think, oh, well, you're not further on in life. You haven't done this, you haven't done that. I did get guarded about it. And, it was very detrimental to my mental health, to sit and think that, to think, oh my gosh, I feel like shit. Like I haven't done anything to myself. When in reality, I've done a lot of things. I mean, I did go back and finish up a degree. I'm finishing another one. I packed up and moved within the span of like 2 weeks to a new state because I wanted to live near the ocean. And I said, okay, and did it. And so this whole concept of A, having your shit figured out, and B, supposedly looking a certain way, brings me back to that where they were, everybody was like, well, they're supposed to be the same as they were in the first series. Well, let them act the same that they were in the first series. It doesn't matter that they put 20 years on. Who cares? And like, if they wanted to have the work done and it was something that they wanted, who cares? It's not up to you to say how good they look. They're doing it for themselves. And another looking at something was, the dress in your age or whatever. Britney Spears, she's just turned 40. And I know that a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, she wears these crop tops and these booty shorts. She dances around. She should act her age. First of all, this woman was in a conservatorship for 13 years and couldn't do anything. Let her dress the way she wants. If I look that good, I would dress that way too. Like, let her do what she wants. Who cares what the number says your age is? And like, we had, where I worked at, we had these two women who would come in who probably were in their late 70s. Coolest women ever. Coolest women ever. I want to be them when I get to that age. They dressed how they wanted to, super fashionable, had a hilarious email address, and gave no fucks about it. And I'm like, that's how you should do it. That's how you should be. It doesn't matter what your age is. There should be no strict act your own age. There should be no, if, like I said, if you want to get married and you want to have kids either young or by mid 30s, and that's a goal you set for yourself, that's great. But don't get super disappointed if you haven't met that goal. Don't think that you're some sort of failure because you haven't met that. You still have time. And maybe it's not in the cards. Maybe there's something else better for you, or not better for you, but maybe there's something different for you that's going to make you completely happy. It's just, it's really stuff that's been completely on my mind since I had my birthday. And I just, I kept thinking like, oh God, it used to be so hard for me to think that I was going to turn 40. Like I cried when I turned 30. And I think because I still had that mindset of, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have friends that have a kid now. I have, friends that have been married for a while and have several kids. I have friends that have got these great jobs. And what am I doing? And then the more time that passed and the older I got, once I passed like 35 into these later 30s, I started to realize that it doesn't really matter. I'm doing my own thing and hopefully we'll do great things with the nonprofits that I want to start. And I mean, obviously, for most of you know, Betty White just passed. She didn't quite hit her 100th birthday. She just passed. And you look at 99 years of her life, the great things that she did later. I mean, she did great things in her early life, but you look at the great things that she did later in life. I mean, there shouldn't be an age limit on when you can start to do something, and that's part of the rant was to, forge your own path, do your own thing. Don't let society set a time limit on when you can do something, or let society or someone else set a limit on like how you can dress, what you want to do. Go, if you want to go out to a bar at 55 and stay out late at night and listen to music, do it. Who cares? It's your life. Unless your actions have a detrimental consequence to someone else that is close to you, who cares? Just do what you want to do. Go back to school, learn a new trade. If you are retired, you have no kids, you have no real other obligations, and you want to live out of a trailer and like travel, do it. If you have the means to do it, do it. Like you can't let someone else telling you, oh, you're too old for that. Because that's bullshit. You're not too old for that. Do it. Travel around, make your own way. And for people who are younger, don't get so caught up in the, I've got to have this figured out by this time. If I don't have this figured out before I'm 30, I've done nothing good. Because again, that's a crock of shit. You don't have to have your whole world and your whole life figured out before you turn a certain age or by a certain age. I mean, hell, I know some 18-year-olds that have figured out more things than I have. And that's great. That's great for them. And I wish them nothing but the best. But it doesn't make me feel any worse about myself because I know what my path is. I know what I want to do. And I know, what steps I have to take to get there. And I don't care that I'm going to be 50 plus when I get it done. Who cares? As long as I'm still in good health and still kicking it, I'm going to dress the way I want to. I'm going to figure things out in my own time. I'm going to do what I want to do. And it's up to me. It's on me. And as long as I'm not hurting anyone else and I'm not making life worse for anyone else, it doesn't matter. It's not up to anyone else. It's just me. And I think realizing that has helped a lot with my mental health because in this forging your own path, I am going to talk about mindfulness and mental health because I'm someone who's lived with high functioning depression, like serious depression and serious anxiety. And I can get very worked up over the smallest things. And much more so when I was younger than now. I've kind of had to learn to let go and let myself, just breathe it out. But I work all the time. I do a lot of side projects. I go to school full time. And I do it so I don't have to get in my head so much. And it's something that in this new year I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to get back into therapy and start talking to, people about I shouldn't just live with it and be okay with it. And for those of you who don't have to worry about living with, depression or anxiety to such a high degree, what I may not look like the face of someone who has it very seriously, but there have been times, and this has been something that was hard for me to talk about, but it's good to talk about because other people may need to hear it and may need to hear that they're not alone. But there have been times where like I've gotten so in my head and so depressed and so at the same time so anxious that my hygiene goes to hell in a handbasket. Like I'm lucky to put deodorant and clean clothes and brush my teeth. Those are the three things that I do every day. But I mean, there's been times where I've gone like a week or more without taking a shower. Not recently because things have gotten a little bit better, but there were times in the past, there were times where I wouldn't clean and would just live, in chaos because I thought I was thriving in it and because I knew where everything was, even though it was chaotic. It was a mess. And but on the outside, going to work and putting makeup on and putting these clothes on, it would look like that I was okay. But deep down on the opposite side of it, I wasn't. I was never really okay. And last year at this time, I don't think I could have done this. I don't think I could have talked about it. I don't think I could have, you been open about it, but it was. And honestly, in 2020, when I got furloughed, when COVID hit, honestly, the furlough was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, even though I don't wish coronavirus on anyone. Get vaccinated, get boosted, do it. I did it. We'll be fine. Do it for the sake of yourself and for other people. That's the one thing. Care about other people. But if that furlough wouldn't have happened, I don't know that I would still be around. Like I got into that dark of a place. At the time, I owned 2 horses and couldn't go out to see either one of them. I couldn't before that time, before everything shut down and we weren't going anywhere. I couldn't make myself because I didn't want to be around people more than I had to because I had to be around people all day at work. And working with the general public, if you have anxiety or depression, can really make it a million times worse. Like I have a severe disdain for the general public as a whole because of how I've worked in retail. That doesn't mean I don't love people. Let me preface that by saying that doesn't mean I don't love people. I do, and I want the best for people, most people. But as a whole, because I have worked in retail for so long and in that customer service style position, it makes me have a general disdain and hate for the general public. Like I don't try to go out. Like I still do pickups. Thank God for pickups being able to do at Walmart, at the grocery store. So I don't have to be around people. Which I have to say, moving to Charleston, it's a whole new crop of people. And like it's not quite as bad as living in a town that you've lived in your entire life and you know everyone and you have that fear of seeing somebody that you know outside. But yeah, like I didn't want to do anything. And it got to the point where I would sit at home and I would buy things on the internet. I would do internet shopping. I would just, make stupid purchases and make stupid decisions and spend money that I didn't have. And it was all part of this, the inward pull of this mental health issue that I had that I wasn't talking to anyone about. And it was all part of the delusion that I'm okay, and you're not. And I didn't realize how not okay I was until right before COVID hit. Because right before COVID hit, my dog that I had had for 15 years, Matilda, who was my best friend, that dog was my home, loved her, occasionally will still cry about her, loved that dog. She actually passed in February. And I still have small amounts of PTSD from her passing because I always feel like there was something more that I could have done, or that I should have tried to call the vet quicker. She ended up passing in the home because we couldn't get her to the vet. She was just too fragile, and I didn't want her to hurt any more than she already was. So, she did have some medicine to help her there at the end, but I lost her in February, and then COVID hit in March. And that time period, she started declining in January of that year, right after she had turned 15. And I think during that time period, it really, because she was so much of an emotional support to me, and because she was my home, that decline really forced my decline even worse. And it was not something that I ever really talked to anyone about, even though I have my very best friend, Renee, who was on the last podcast, who is brilliant and amazing. Even though I could have talked to her, she knows that I'm the type that's like, I don't want to bother somebody with this. I don't want somebody to have to worry about, because she had her own thing going on. She's had her own things going on. And I didn't want to add to that, even though 100% I always could have. She always would have been there to talk to me. And, during that time, I was having more and more panic attacks, and to the point where I would have to pull my car over on the side of the road and, would try to call somebody to help me calm down. And my mom is not one to ever have, she doesn't understand mental health. She doesn't understand depression, anxiety. My mom's very religious and always sees it as well, you just got to pray about it, and not, this is actually something that you need to get help for, which probably needed to happen in my teenage years. And I actually called her one time, and she said the worst thing that you can say to anyone that is having a panic attack: you just need to calm down. I had to hang up the phone on her. And while if you've ever had a panic attack, you get that tunnel vision, you think you're going to die, you're having trouble breathing, like you're crying uncontrollably on top of it, you think you're going to pass out, all of this. I had to continue to drive down the interstate and find a parking spot so I could sit and calm down. And it wasn't until I got home when my mom realized, oh God, like this was more serious than I thought. I've tried to make her understand, kind of what I've gone through and, what it means to have this. But, like I said, she's never been one to fully understand. She's one of those that will tell you it's just in your head. It's like, yeah, that's the problem. It is in my head and it needs to get fixed. But it's something I've had to actually going to school and, learning about, because one of my degrees, once I go back to finish up the other bachelor's degrees in human services. So I took a lot of psychology classes, and, actually learning about some of this stuff and realizing, okay, like, this is something I really need to talk to someone about. I don't need to hold it in. And actually learning what it means to have this, and, seeing that I'm not alone in it. That's it's helped me more, to be a little bit more open to talk about it. And, like I said, when March hit and COVID happened and our store closed down and we were furloughed, a lot of people were scared. A lot of people were upset. I was scared because I knew that I still needed to make money to pay bills. But at the same time, I was one of those people not wishing anyone to get sick. I was just hoping we were going to stay closed for longer because I needed that break. That was the break that I needed. And that was the break that made me realize I needed to get up and go. I didn't like my job. And I'm sure there are a few people who are listening to this that were coworkers of mine. I did love everybody that I worked with, but I did not like my job. And a lot of it was not necessarily the way we were treated. The store manager personally is great, but could be very passive aggressive in certain things. And I finally got to the point where I realized, okay, this is a retail job. it is not worth it for me to feel like crap every day. It is not worth it for me to hate my life going into work every day. I want to leave. And I really had wanted to transfer to another store, but things didn't work out. There were some issues with it. And so I ended up just taking a chance and got an interview. And within less than a month, I was moving to Charleston without having an apartment, I'd add. So I lived in a hotel for 2 weeks. And then was able to stay somewhere else and then finally got an apartment. But I took that chance and I up and moved. And I know people think that I'm crazy for doing that, but I honestly, yeah, there's been some anxiety issues here, like, trying to get everything in order and trying to fix everything. And but it's also been clarity to me. Like, I've had more clarity here than I've had in a very long time. And it was something I needed to do, and it was forging my own path. And I said to myself, which I don't regret saying this, but I said to myself, you're almost 40. You want to do this before you turn 40. And I realized that's kind of not conducive to what I was saying before about like it shouldn't matter your age, but that's how I felt. But again, I look at it now and I'm like, who cares if you're done with this at 40? Like, do it on your own time and do it to the best of your ability. Because I decided to take a longer path on my Master's of Public Administration program. And I'm glad I did, because my GPA is a 3.9. I've never done that well in school. Like, the older I got, the better I've done in school. And it's because I actually care about it. It's because I actually care about doing well. It's because I actually care. I've gotten older and I've realized exactly what I want to do. So I actually care about it now. And I don't think I could have done this in my 20s. I really don't think I could have. Again, props to people who can. Like, I'm in no way, shape, or form bashing anyone for doing anything at any age. I'm just saying, just live on your own timeline. Don't worry about somebody else's timeline. Don't worry about thinking that you have to have everything done at this time. That's, it's been this huge part of this rant that, I kind of wanted to get into. And a lot of it is, again, like what kind of brought it up, not only was it that I had a birthday, but also a friend of mine just had babies. She's only a few months younger than me, and she just had twin girls. And I'm like, that is great. Like, she already had 2 kids that are a little bit older, but she had 2 more. And I'm like, who cares that she was older? And the fact that they label it like a geriatric pregnancy, like, I get it's higher risk. And yes, your body does take a toll when you have pregnant, like when you're pregnant later. But some people want to wait. Like, my mom had me at 37. My sister had her kids in her 30s. Like, I don't see anything wrong with it. And it's just this whole societal pressure. And I think that is the reason, like, my mental health took a downturn. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people's mental health takes a downturn, is because these pressures of you should do something by a certain time, especially, yes, for men too, because they have the whole, well, you should have it figured out and you should be able to take care of your family by this age. What? It's just a crock of shit. But for women, like in Hollywood, like women over 40, they're like, there's no roles for them. But I'm also thinking too, like, look at people like Sandra Bullock and Jennifer Aniston. They don't always have to play these like matronly roles after they turn 40. I mean, even people like Meryl Streep can play different roles. Like, why is it such a huge deal? And like, it's just something that's always bothered me. Like, why is that number 40? Why is that the number that is like, this signifies the beginning of the end? This is your midlife crisis. Not everybody lives to 80. Some people live longer. Some people live less. Why does it have to be a midlife crisis? Why can't it be a midlife finding of age, coming of age? Why can't it be that? And like, I just like, do yourself. Like, you do you, boo. That's always what I've said to people. Like, you do you. Like, don't feel like you have to do what everybody else thinks you should do. Like, find your own way, do your own path. It's going to be so much more for your mental health. Like, it's going to be so much better for yourself. And again, like, as long as what you want to do isn't to a detriment to someone else, do it. Fuck it. Do it. Like, just do it. Do you. Like, it shouldn't matter what age. Like, to bring up like different reality shows, like Drag Race, which I love. I love Drag Race. There are some queens that won at an older age. And yes, some of them had been doing it for years and years and years, and it finally paid off. And that age that they are helped them out more than maybe some of these younger queens. Like, that age was used to their benefit. Why can't that be in everyday life? Why can't we say that our age, use it to our benefit? Going back to school, we've already learned a lot. It's going to help us get a better grade. How can that age not be our experience to get the job that we've always wanted? Like, I think of it that way. And this has just been something that has been like on my mind. I mean, obviously, again, like I said, just having a birthday. It's something I wanted to do for, the new year. Like, I'm not one to set New Year's resolutions. Not that I'm saying that no one should. Again, this is just me having a TED talk. This isn't self-help. I don't set New Year's resolutions, mainly because I don't always follow them. I'll set tiny goals for myself. I like to make lists, but I don't tend to set a lot of goals because I I've kind of been afraid of failure, and I'm trying to get over that because I always think I'm not going to meet them. I set too lofty of goals, and I put too much pressure on myself. And getting to the age that I'm now, I've had to learn to not put that much pressure on myself because, again, it doesn't matter. So, like, I've set little goals, like little tiny goals. My goal for this year is to actually get through a planner, because usually I get through about 2 weeks of using a little daily planner, and then that's it. Like last year, I spent like $70 on one of those Erin Condren planners because it had a zodiac symbol on it, and I liked it, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to do this whole bullet journal thing. 2 weeks. That is all that is in there. There is 2 weeks worth of stuff in there, and that is it. I would never do well on a like meal plan. Here's what you can eat for the day. That is not my life. I'm organized to a degree. When it comes to work and sometimes to school, I'm very organized. But when it comes to my own life, again, I live in chaos. I don't want to say I thrive in it, but I do live in it. I'm also a huge procrastinator. Like, wait till the very last minute to do something and then do it because I feel like I put my best work out. It's not always true. That is a horrible way to live. Do it. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do kind of things. But yeah, there's little things that I would like to do this year. And I don't want to necessarily say that I set it as goals. I just kind of manifested it into, okay, this might be what I do this year. Because if I don't put the pressure on myself and I don't see it as something that I have to do, I'm more likely to do it. I manifested myself getting a better job. And I did. I started this week. And it's a step up. It's a lot more money. It's a step up. It's, something that I've not done yet. And it's going to be very challenging, but it's something that I knew that I was ready for, and I was ready to do it. And if I would not have been in the mindset that I was in, and I would not have had some of these realizations over the last couple of months, I don't think I would have done it. And I think I would have been in a place, not that I disliked the job that got me here, it just wasn't quite the right place for me. I've met some great people there, and there are some wonderful people that work there. Just not, when you know something's not the right fit, I've had to learn to go rather than stay. Just to continue to stay on. It's like in the very first podcast that I did, the importance of saying no. It was, I couldn't stay. I couldn't do it. And, a lot of people had quit at the same time I did for different reasons. And I kept thinking, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Before, like when I knew that there were other people leaving and I knew that I had an interview coming, I have talked myself out of several interviews over the last month or two. A, I didn't feel like they were quite right. And then B, I was also like, oh my God, I can't leave these people. They're going to be so disappointed. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Well, this opportunity kind of just fell in my lap, and I had no hesitations. I knew people were leaving, and, I had to tell her, I'd be like, this isn't personal. This is strictly just, this is a better opportunity for me. It's what I need to do. I have no ill will, and I hope the store does great, and I hope that she's able to find a good replacement. But this job was not for me. And it's very understanding. They were all very understanding. And, I think if I would have turned this down, I probably would have resented myself, and I probably started to resent other people there. And I could have gotten myself into the deep hole that I was in, a year ago. And well, was it all over? Like a year and a half ago. It's 2 years now. Jesus. COVID has been going on for almost 2 years. But I would have resented it, and I would have gotten myself into a very dark place, and I wouldn't have had a lot of fun. And so it's something that I've had to learn to follow my own advice, to say no when it's going to be detrimental to me. And then I've also had to learn how to say, yeah, let's do it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to change over. I'm going to do this. A saying that I've used for a while, to figure out, like, to try to get myself to a place of, okay, it shouldn't matter what anybody else thinks. This is for you. This is what you need to do, is to chuck it in the fucking bucket. And it's as simple as that. Take whatever doubts that you have. If your gut says this is what you should do, but your mind is putting those little doubts in it, chuck it in the fucking bucket and just do it. Like, if you just go with your gut, because most of the time your gut's going to be right, and it's going to make you a lot happier. And your brain will eventually follow up. You'll eventually get out of that slump. You'll eventually realize that your gut was trying to do what was best for your brain, for your mental health. But that's my kind of hope for the new year. And that's kind of my hope for the new year going forward on this podcast too, is to, my goal with this podcast, and my friend Renee and I were talking about it after we had recorded the last one, was I'm not doing this to get a ton of listeners. I mean, I hope that people listen. I really do. I hope that this helps someone, like anyone, let them know that there are people out there that are going through the same thing. There are people out there that are understanding. There are people out there that are an ally to them. There are people out there that are, in the same predicament, that just want the best. That's been my whole goal. Like, it's not to gain a lot of listeners. It's just to have the right listener. Part of it too is to hopefully get in touch with people who can help, even volunteer when I start, the nonprofit that I want to start, or people who maybe have ties to local or state or federal government that can help get some of these issues onto the platform. That's always been my goal. And, I'm just going to keep turning these out. I'm going to keep talking about discussions that need to be talked about. And, all I can do is say, hey, if you enjoy this and you enjoy listening to this, tell a friend. I mean, I know that the title of this pod is a little misleading, but really becoming a management scientist is really also about becoming a better person, because it's my journey too. It's not just me trying to help other people. It's also my journey. And that's kind of what this pod here that I'm recording was about, the forging your own way. It's also about me forging my own path too, because I needed something like this. I needed to have an outlet to be able to talk about the things that I need to get heard. I needed an outlet to talk about, rants that I have. This one specifically about aging and how it's just so misconstrued, how age is just a number. If you, again, who cares what age you are? If you want to do something, do it. If you want to wear a crop top at 70 and you still have, who cares if you even have the body? If you want to wear a crop top at 70, I don't care what you look like, do it. Do it for yourself. Who cares what other people think? I mean, that's really what this whole rant has been about. Like, I don't get so wrapped up in what somebody else thinks about you. Care about your own self, care about what you think, care about what you want to do. And if it makes you happy, don't listen to the negativity around you. I mean, we all do it. I know this. It's hard. It's easier said than done. But don't listen to all the negativity around you, because chances are that that person is so locked up in their own misfortunes or shortcomings or not being happy and not being able to do what they want to do themselves. They're just jealous of the fact that you are happy doing this. That's 100% all it is. Again, I said it before, you do you, boo. Make yourself happy. If you're not hurting anybody else, do it. I don't care about what anybody else thinks. I mean, I got to take my own advice too. And that's part of, things for 2022 is to move on up and be better and better myself, and, maybe help some people out along the way. So that is where I'm going to end this chapter, and y'all have a good year, a great year doing what you want to do, or starting out to do what you want to do, baby steps. Like I said, the next two podcasts I'm going to do, hopefully get in touch with a friend of my friend Renee's, who is working on her PhD, and she's doing some research in mindfulness, which is something that my Apple Watch screams at me daily to take some time for mindfulness. And that is something for this year that I really want to do. So I'm hoping to have a conversation with her in the next episode or two. I'm also probably the next episode that I do is going to start the topic of religion, because I kind of want to talk about things that have gone on with like the Duggars, because the denomination of the church that I grew up in is also the denomination that the Duggars were from. And there's actually a really good podcast of someone who kind of goes in depth about this denomination, and it's called the Preacher Boys podcast, and I actually listen to that quite often. But I, hopefully we'll start a conversation around that, and hopefully we'll have maybe some guests who grew up with me in that same, situation. We'll kind of talk about, finding our way out of it, and, even finding our new beliefs, and even finding our sexuality, which is something I've had to come to terms with over the last couple of years as well. Just kind of finding out about myself and really becoming okay with it. So, but that'll be in part of that conversation too. I probably will actually do just the part one by myself, and then maybe see if I can get some of them to join. We'll see. Talk to you guys next week.